We're officially live for the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today, you may or may not have heard it, but we pulled off a marvelous feat last week.
That we did.
125 investors that not a single one of them were average showed up to Jacksonville, 2-day magical event. Not everybody else could make it. We know this because we had a 50-person wait list. So today we are recapping the event. We're going to recap kind of what we talked about, why, our takeaways. Afterwards, we're going to have the MVP, Lee, come on and give us his take. So Lee, hang in there for us. We're going to pull you up here once we're done with doing our recap. I'm excited for this.
You're not the only one.
Tap into the magic.
Let's do it, baby.
Good. Because I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the man that I affectionately like to call GC because of his genius concepts, because he knows how to generate cash flow, because he's a great co-host, and because his name is Gregg Cohen.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you.
See, sometimes you don't have to wait for me to say hello, Gregg.
It's amazing what I can do on my own.
Sometimes you can do it on your own, buddy. Speaking of doing things on your own, there is something we cannot do on our own.
Oh, no.
And that is, we need everybody to support JWB Cares.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Oh, yeah, we do.
We do. Now is the time. So every year we ask for all of your support to help us in our mission to solve the affordable housing crisis. And the best way that we know how to do that is to come together as a community, raise a whole bunch of money, use that money to build a brand new construction home and donate that home to a deserving member in our community who this year just happens to be a JWB resident. So that's what we're doing. I'm asking for all of your help. And when you help now, sometimes you just help because you donate, which is amazing. But we're making it a little bit fun for any of you who are gamblers out there.
A little extra juice.
A little extra cheese. So we're doing a raffle, a 50-50 raffle. And so if you donate now, you will get raffle tickets. And for those who donate $100, you get something extra special. Not only do you get a chance to win the 50-50 raffle, which means
wait, there's more.
There's there's more, as I stumble over that one. Didn't know that was coming there. Yeah, so what you also get is an opportunity we get one of these sweatshirts. We have 3 left. And so if you donate $100 and buy those raffle tickets, you get one of these fancy schmancy Summit incredibly awesome sweaters.
Yeah.
They do say, don't be average on the back, which is pretty cool.
Pretty cool. But wait, there's more.
You know what? I'm putting my daughter to work as well. So many of you heard the story of my daughter, Isabella, who is making bracelets to support JWB Cares. And Pablo and I are rocking our bracelets here. They say DBA on them for don't be average. If you donate $100, buy $100 worth of the raffle tickets, you will get a beautiful sweater and
you get a handmade quality crafted American-made bracelet.
There you go.
Made right here in Jacksonville, Florida. And it's time for a little action ourselves, GC, with a tradition we have around here. What is it?
The roll call, baby.
We got the MVP in the house checking in first.
Mr. Lee Bishop.
We're going to hear from him in a little bit. We got our leadoff hitter batting second today.
John Henning.
We got the patron Santorios from Northern Virginia.
Michael Santorios.
We got our teammate, Allie King, in the house.
Not only just a teammate, she was the captain of the Summit, did an incredible job.
Not only was she teammate and a captain of the Summit, she was the last person out on the team in the Friday happy hour.
Oh,
we closed it down.
Oh, yeah.
Holding it down. We got Steven Chmielewski from Providence, Rhode Island.
All right, Steven.
We got Lewis Hudnell, rockin' and rollin' call from Rockland, California.
My Steeler fan, JWB client right there.
Haven't heard your name in a while, man. Good to have you. We got our regulars, Gary and Rosalind Riley from Marietta, California.
We regard you.
We got the Wonderkind.
That's right.
Jeffrey Wonder from New Orleans, friend of the show.
Jeff, it's great to see you, buddy.
Yeah,
and Jeff came to the Summit
last year.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah. What happened?
Man, Jeff, we had an awesome time.
You missed out, buddy. You missed out. We got Susan Parker in the house. Good to have you back in.
All right, Susan.
We got Pamela Myers, who is here and excited for the recap of the Summit. Pamela and her husband, Michael.
It was awesome to hang out with Pamela and her husband. It was so cool.
They were great. We got Raja Francais.
Reggie, good to see you,
from
buddy.
the Inland Empire. Reggie, good to have you back. We got the Shaw man in the house.
Nadeem Shah.
We got the amigo in the house.
Bill Shields.
With buenas tardes, amigos. Buenas tardes, Bill Shields. We got Michael and Pamela Myers checking in. Good to have you back. Oh, wait. We already said, okay. If Pamela checks in, Michael, you can't also check in. You're breaking my brain, bro. Michael is an esteemed hunter and fisher over there in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And funny man, too. Susan Parker writes in here. She's got something to share of her takeaway. We'll get back to that. We got Charity Graham in the house.
All right, Charity.
Excited to be
Wonderful,
here.
completely appropriate name for what we're promoting here on the show today.
It is. We've got Big Papa in the house. We love it when he calls him Big Papa.
Pops, how are you, my man?
The co-founder of the co-founder, Jay Cohen, father of Gregg Cohen. We got
Billy Green
from the vertically integrated mountains of Colorado. We got the early bird in the house.
Mr. Dean Curry.
Dang, he misses everybody already. We miss you too. We got Glenn Schenken in the house, future star of the show.
Of course, can't wait.
Coming up after Daytona Bike Week. I just found out that's the reason why he's not coming on.
We have to have priorities.
It's pretty cool.
Can't wait to have you, Glenn.
We got the Jocelyn's in the house. Stanley, Jocelyn checking in with us.
That's wonderful. Stanley and his wife came to the summit. It was wonderful to hang out with you guys.
Great hanging out with you as well. Who else we got in here? Scrolling through. All right, if I don't see a new name after a little bit, we just get into it. We got the first family, the patriarch and matriarch, Ken and Carolyn Moline.
We salute you.
We got Kevin O'Brien in the house, another star of the summit as well. From
Absolutely.
Rhode Island.
He didn't know if he was from Rhode Island or Boston. We're still not sure.
He has got the heaviest Boston accent I've ever heard, so I had no idea he's from Rhode Island. But yeah, good times. Good at karaoke too. Mark Sauer from Cincinnati, Ohio.
All right, Mark.
No,
I don't know if it's a new name.
No,
new name. Either way, we love that you're here. Mark.
Not a
Thanks
new
for being
name.
here.
Eddie Harris
From Hot Atlanta.
Atlanta. Good to have you, Harris. Eddie. It's not Hervé out here. Good to have you. Tara Klein, mother of Flywheels.
There
in
she
the house.
is. Future guest, future star of the show.
Steven Chmielewski. Did we check in earlier? He also just said hello right now.
He did.
I lose track of these things. BB in the house. We got Milady in the house.
Jack Chatta.
Chatta. We got to hang out with her. She's awesome.
So fun.
And what else we got? All right, cool.
Hey,
man.
there's a special person there. My mom is in the audience today. Debbie Alo checking in. How about that?
Debbie, good to
I
have
love
you.
ya.
The other co-founder of the co-founder.
What do you know?
Debbie, good to have you in here. All right, cool. Let's kick this off, GC.
Let's do it, baby.
We started the summit off. First, everybody got there and we turned everybody around and said, hey, what makes it not your average experience, right?
Mhm.
Like we wanted to get into this. And what we heard a lot was this ideas of like team and over delivery, which I thought was really, really cool.
Mhm.
And then we went into what we are affectionately calling our point of view.
Mm.
What is that, GC?
You know, I think with every great investment and with every great company that's been built, what started before that was a big problem that somebody was trying to solve. And what we have really honed in on, and the big problem that we are trying to solve through rental property investing, is that retirement is broken. And we feel like we can make a dramatic impact for people and for our country by helping us solve that again through rental property investing.
Yeah. And it's something that really came to light when we were getting together for, like our marketing kickoff at the beginning of the year. We're just like, man, we see these shifting winds. We see this stuff happening. We started looking into it and the statistics were pretty daunting, right? Like this idea that the average American that is between 55 to 65 only has about $500,000 saved up. The median has like 168,000 saved up. They're not replacing more than 50% of their income. That look like the big problem that JWB is built to solve with their team.
Yeah, 100%. And, the problem is only getting worse too, because if we think about where retirement is today and the fact that we all are living longer now and those technologies to provide that healthcare as we age are super expensive, the cost to retire is only going up. We've talked in past shows about how Social Security is certainly not reliable for us. And for those who are going to retire, call it 10 years from now or beyond, we don't know what's going to happen with Social Security. So as we sit here today, even though we know that retirement has some serious, serious challenges, today is the easiest time to solve it. Mm-hmm. It's only going to become a bigger and bigger problem 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And we believe that this solution starts with a better asset. And the cool thing is that we're not the only two guys out here that think this. Americans think this. Mm-hmm. And if you ask everyday Americans, you might have this experience. People generally say real estate's a pretty good investment, right? Yep. Gallup actually puts a poll together every year and they ask Americans, what's the best long-term investment? And every year the answer is real estate. And guess what? This year they put it out and the answer was real estate. That was pretty good. And it wasn't just by a small margin. Nearly twice as many Americans believe real estate is a better long-term investment than the stock market. But then if you actually look at what people are doing with their money, you'll find something that's pretty staggering. 61% of Americans own stock. Only 12% of Americans own rental properties. So we know there's a big problem out there. We know that there's a better solution as far as a better asset out there. That's what we all think, but we're doing largely the opposite.
That's right.
And so we feel like there is a huge opportunity to make an impact on people.
Huge opportunity to make an impact. And what we learned in that community, right? What was really cool is that room is the room of people that got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what really hit us. We looked around at the stats inside the room of Not Your Average Investors at the summit. There was 103 properties that were owned. 103?
That's the Pablo curve. It was 105, but you were close.
I thought I said 105, and then you corrected me to 103. All right. Anyways,
I'm just saying. I mean, it was 105. I can check the slides right here if we want.
It's fine. I'm not a numbers guy. But yeah, 105 properties owned in the room. We've realized over the last year that 32% of 32% of new investors that invest with JWB have attended a show in the last 30 days, right? And that was the big opportunity, right? Like we have this disconnect between what people want to do and what you all are doing. And the idea that we can make a really, really big impact if we can get people to go from what you all understand of going from like real estate is only for active real estate investors to real estate is for everybody, from going from this idea that it's like a super crapshoot experience, which Gregg doesn't understand that terminology, but like unpredictable to like it can be standardized and it gets standardized because if you go from working with like mom and pops to working with a world-class company like JWB, and then on top of that, what everybody in this room understands is this idea that you can go from like, oh, it's complicated to, oh no, I know so many people doing it so many different ways. And on top of that, I got some insider juice. I have a information advantage, right? So that is the point of view that we're going to all be talking about. But I thought something really special happened in that room, GC. I've been saying it for a long time in the show that I think you can be the Richard Branson of real estate. And it makes you super uncomfortable.
It does. Every time you say it, makes me uncomfortable.
I can tell by your weird smile there. But like, but this idea, you've always, in my opinion, and I think maybe the Not Your Average Investor community can echo with this, but like for everything that you've accomplished and all of the things that you guys are all doing, like you have this like very humble mentality, but in that room on Friday morning, I heard you paint a much bigger vision of like this like great impact in changing America. You want to tell me what was behind that?
You know, it was a special moment that Friday morning, and I just started to speak from the heart. And the words that I was saying, I really hadn't shared before, probably because it's kind of scary to think about, you know, talking about changing the world or changing people's lives. It's certainly not something that I take lightly. But as I started just to speak from the heart about not just what the problem is and what the solution can be, but what I see as far as how we are changing people's lives, it just started to flow. And it was just there was a whole lot of emotion that came out. I started to think about the fact that if you run the numbers, there's 335 million people in this country, and 70 million of those people are investing in something that they don't want to. They think that there's a better asset there. So I thought of 70 million people. And then I think about what's happening day in and day out. And I think about, you know, through all of your investments in JWB properties, it's not just the return on investment that you're getting. You're a part of a much bigger solution. You're a part of increasing the tax rolls within our great city here. So property tax revenues can be increased, and we can pay teachers more, and we can pay firefighters more, and police officers more, and we can build more roads, and we can continue to build out our infrastructure. And I think about the fact that, you know, not only is JWB building homes for rental properties, we're also building homes for owner occupants. And has anybody heard about this housing affordability crisis that we have?
You're going to hear about a lot more.
Well, when you really see the big picture of what you're investing in, every time that you invest in a JWB property, you are a part of the solution for affordable housing. Because as we build over 400 homes this year, that's 400 homes that are in workforce housing neighborhoods, which is the greatest need for affordable housing that we have at this time. And we can't do that unless you're investing there. I think about, you know, entire generations now that are investing with JWB. Yep. Grandparents have told their parents, have told kids, and they're all investing with JWB. And I think about how we really are changing people's lives, which is our mission here at JWB. So I didn't really intend for it to come out that way, but once it was kind of out there, I was like, this is who we are. This is what you're doing. This is the big picture. And I'm not nearly as kind of scared or uncomfortable to share that now. It really is happening. And I feel like if we don't talk about the big picture of what we're all doing together here, then we're doing a disservice to all of the great efforts, all of the great people that are coming together to really move mountains, which is what we see and we feel here in Jacksonville. And if you were a part of the summit, I know you felt that too. But it's good to lean into good things that are happening in this country, in this world. And you're all a part of it. And it's really, really good.
I love it. Goosebumps, baby. Right? Like when you got into it on the kickoff, like I was like, man, something has changed. I have to assume that this vision, all of this stuff like becoming so real, it's like it's impossible not to see it if you're part of this community, right? Like the Malines watch this thing together. The Filsons have multi-generational, folks here. Jim Kirko watches it with his son, right? Like I think these like stories are getting more and more normalized, and you're starting to, when you're so much in the eye of the hurricane, building a business and doing all this stuff, it's so easy to lose sight of like, everything that is happening and moving on, man. But I'm pumped that that was like a big coming together moment.
It was a great thing. And it wasn't just a great coming together moment for me and for you and for everybody who attended the summit. The words and the buzz within my office of seeing and getting to meet hundreds of our clients and getting to see the people who we serve, who are coming together to do these great things, was something that I hadn't felt in our office in quite a long time. It's been a while since we've had hundreds of folks in the office at one time. And so thank you guys for that gift, because my team is just, they're elated from the experience for everything that you guys brought.
Speaking of multi-generational experiences, Duchess Katrina checking in. We salute you, Duchess Katrina. Awesome, man. So speaking of the team, the next thing was we talked about the JWB raffle, which we just spoke a little while ago. We'll talk about that again at some point on the show. And then very deliberately, we said we were thinking about planning the summit, and we're like, where do we start? Right? Like apart from like painting a vision, apart from getting everybody together, where do we start? And for you, it was the team. And we organized this campus tour. Everybody went department to department. I'm less attuned to like what everybody saw, but I'm sure that you do. What was the campus tour all about?
Well, I think where many investors get tripped up, if they see the big picture, where they get tripped up is they focus so much on the asset and they don't spend any time thinking about the team that's actually going to serve their asset and their portfolio over the long haul. But you don't typically get to your financial goals in rental property investing with one property, and you don't get there in the short run. So if you're going to have big financial goals and rental property investing is going to be a part of it for you, you need to be with a team that can support you for a decade plus. And that's why we talk about the number one decision to make is actually the team that's going to support you. So we thought it was very appropriate as we kicked off the tour to make sure that number one, we got to spend some time with the team that's serving all of our clients at JWB. So we walked and we had multiple people leading multiple sessions across the organization. We have about 12,000 square feet for our office. We have 2 levels here in the office here. So it was funny. You saw a group of 20 to 30 summit attendees walking across the top level, and the other group was walking down on the bottom level. And we got to meet every part of the business. We had one of the leaders in the business on the acquisitions team, or on the construction team, or on the leasing team. Or Pablo and I got to tell the story of how this community got started.
For the first time ever, we opened up the curtain, the shades in the studio, because they're always down, right? Because we got to control the light. Everybody got to come in here, give a testimony if they wanted to, check in on the studio. It was really, really cool.
It was great. And it was so gratifying for the team to see everybody and to be able to share what they get to do on a daily basis and connect the dots and see the people that we're serving. So it was a great time.
And this is the part of the show when we are going to read some of the stuff. Like, as you all know, or may not know, we've started a WhatsApp chat group of people that came. If you want to be part of it and you aren't, and you're an active member of the community, Cody may be able to maybe share the link here in the chat for you. But I asked folks in the WhatsApp group after the summit what their biggest takeaways were. And a bunch of people chimed in here. And if you want to come on and share it yourself, if you're here, let me know in the chat. We'll bring you on a little bit later. But one of the ones that stuck out for me that has to do with this part of the show was Mr. Alapata, John Seckinger. He writes, "We are not regulars on the show. However, due to this experience, we will definitely be there more. We were impressed with the organization, the focus, and professionalism shown by the JWB organization, and especially the employees, in parentheses, team members, we met. We had plenty of nightmare experiences with property management companies and now have a good idea of how doing it right looks. JWB has their act together and we were impressed. Doing it right is JWB. The cream on the cake were the investors we met. It was truly a refreshing and great time. We appreciate everyone we met and look forward to expanding friendships. Thank you all. That's an investor, like I feel like this idea of the value of the team is most understood by folks that have done this before without JWB, right? It's hard for me and my wife to like have a comparison to it because we've never done it before.
Right.
But to folks like John who come here and see this operation, I think they're the ones like you really, really get it when you have this tour and you meet the team and all that stuff.
I agree completely. And it was really wonderful because I don't know how familiar John was with JWB overall, but John really had no familiarity with the community before. But when you walked into this summit, it was like you were walking into a big giant Lee Bishop bear hug is what it was. Yeah. And John and his wife immediately felt that. And it was this safe place. And I don't know if we'll get to read some of the other testimonials that we have here, but I heard things of like, listen, in real estate communities, it doesn't always feel like people are rooting for each other. But as soon as you walked into the summit, I know John felt it because he mentioned it, and I know others felt it. We're all on the same team. We can win together. Yeah. And this concept of a safe place where you feel like everybody can win together is so hard to find in today's world. And I think that's what attracts folks here.
Agreed, man. Agreed. So that was awesome, man. I think what stood out to me in our, I only got to be part of the tour of us talking about it, but it's going back to that origin story of us getting together and your idea being when people spend time with the team, they get it. Yeah. And that is essentially what this whole effort has been. This show, this community that has led to events, right? Like Nadeem is saying, suggestion that's next summit to be 3 days. Surprise, surprise, Nadeem. We've already talked about that this morning, my friend. So
we have.
We're going to talk a little bit about that stuff, but it should be cool. But yes, it makes perfect sense. The more time you spend here, the more you get to know the different members of the team, the more obvious it is that this is a place that you trust, and trust begets competency. So like now they understand, oh, okay, so all these stats and all these different headlines and all the great accomplishments make sense because I know the people doing it, and it helps you rationalize it. So I thought that was great. And thanks for that review, John. After that, we all had a big lunch, which was phenomenal. Lori crushed it.
Our in-house chef. She normally cooks for, 120-ish people for JWB. So we just said, hey, Lori, could you double that for this day? Lori's one person, by the way. And she just did an incredible job.
Yeah, cooked up a feast. And after that, we went to go see a property, and we did a live JWB rental property of the week. Where we took 100 and something people to go see. We had 2 houses side by side that were, turnkey properties. And next to them were 2 retail properties. So 4 JWB homes, 2 that were sold to not your average investors, and 2 that were sold to residents, GC. Tell me about the significance of that, man. I thought that was really interesting.
So part of this tour is just peeling back the layers here to show you how JWB has built our business to not only just survive the Great Recession when we started, but to thrive in whatever market gets thrown at us and whatever economy gets thrown at us. So when Pablo was just sharing here, how often do you get to go to one property and get to ask questions, touch it, feel it, kick the tires in a sense, to one turnkey investment property? Well, it wasn't just one, it was 2 turnkey properties. So now you could look at some things and say, well, this is a slightly different floor plan over here. Why did you do this? Why did you do this on this side? So you kind of got compare and contrast. And it worked really well too, because they were right next door to each other. They're both JWB homes, of course. And we have 100 and some odd people that are going through. So it helped. It was very, very convenient. But the next kind of layer that I wanted to share with everybody is the secret to JWB being in business for 18 years and surviving is that we understand that different market conditions are going to come our way. We are not fixated on one way of doing business forever. And when market conditions change, we just need to see what's going to happen early enough so that we can pull one part of the lever of our business a little bit different than another lever of the business. And when the market is telling us that this is going to open up as an opportunity, we bob and we weave and we make sure that that lever is pulled. So where this is all going is next to those 2 JWB turnkey properties were retail properties that JWB owns, and then we sold to owner occupants. When Pablo was saying residents, he's talking about people who are moving into the home. They bought the home to move into the home. And you start to get to see some similarities and some differences for how we would renovate or build a new construction home that's sold for retail to owner occupants, and how it is sold to a turnkey client. Like, for example, one of the questions that was asked was, hey, Greg, I looked in the backyard, and on the retail properties, I see nice, fresh sod in the backyard, and it looks really nice. The grass looks great. And I looked in the backyard of the turnkey property, and the backyard didn't look nearly as nice. There was not sod, there was not grass. Why did you make a decision to do it over there, but not over here? And what I was able to share with people is that there is a different intention there. There is a different market there as well. On the retail side, folks are willing to pay for that sod. It helps the saleability of the house, and folks who move into that house have proven that they want to continue to maintain that sod over time. Generally, they have more income to be able to do that. And so it makes sense to do the additional landscaping in the backyard for a retail house right next door to a turnkey property. And a turnkey property, it has proven not to be a great return on investment for the end client, and it is not good for the resident as well, because if you give them sod and landscaping, part of their lease agreement is that they need to maintain this, which takes time, effort, and money to maintain that. And for residents, that is not what their intention is. So it's actually more of a burden to have that. If you just have really nice sod landscaping, you don't do anything about it, well, it's not going to be nice. And then eventually the resident could be on the hook for that. So we don't do those things. So there were 10, 20 other takeaways that you could see from retail to turnkey. Why do we do this? It's because we have a different lens when we're selling a property to you. It's to a return on investment, as well as providing a great living experience for the resident. But I did want to make one more point. In addition to seeing this, the differences there, the big picture here is the reason that we've been able to survive and thrive through all these market conditions is flexibility. And so in our core neighborhoods, as we're building out over 400 homes, we are very flexible for which homes we are going to sell to retail owners and which homes we're going to sell to turnkey clients. It's the same home. It's built largely the same way in the same neighborhood, and some goes to retail market and some goes to turnkey. This provides incredible flexibility for JWB that most other investment companies just simply don't have, because they only do one thing one way, and they take a big risk. If a developer builds out, 100 homes in a subdivision and those homes don't sell, they don't have the ability to rent those homes out and then to sell those assets to investors on the back end. So I thought that was a really cool takeaway that we got a lot of feedback. People were like, I didn't know that you guys also do that.
In that story, it's such like a snapshot of the operational prowess and strategic masterpiece that is JWB, right? Like you have mentioned essentially data flywheel, this idea that you guys understand and, like because of your proprietary data, that sod in a rental property doesn't make sense, while sod in a retail sales situation does make sense, right? Like those nuances that most people don't have. And you're also describing this idea that you have built a business that is built to last, as one of Jim Collins' books is called, right? Like you have thought through the different cycles of a market and the different kind of like scenarios that you can go to, and you guys pressure test your business, and you do all these different things that most business at your scale just really aren't organized and operationally capable enough to do. And what that means is you've built something that's going to be here for a long time, because you're building these long-term relationships. You're asking people to invest in a city for 30 years. You're asking people to invest in your team for 30 years. And you're like able to show that you've thought through what all that means, which I think is really incredible.
Absolutely.
Cool, man.
It was a matter of survival in 2006. We had to learn the hard way in 2006 when we started, but that same kind of mentality has stayed with us, and I think has served us really well in good times and in times that have been challenging, for sure.
Speaking of a mentality that I really, really like, my favorite moment in the summit, right? And this is the little behind the scenes peek here. It's about a week before the summit. Gregg is Gregg has, between us here, just us, Gregg's a nervous wreck, right? Like Gregg's a really well-spoken person, major introvert, and really, really cares about people like having a good experience, right? So he's a nervous wreck, and he's telling me that he's telling his daughter, Isabella, that, you know, he's a little nervous for the summit. And she's like, why, Dad? He's like, well, I got to speak in front of all these people. She's like, can I talk? Right.
Yeah.
You want to tell that story real quick?
I mean, yeah, I would love to. It's one of the most special moments that I've had as a dad, to be quite honest. So yeah, so we were having that, you know, I was putting her to bed and we were just talking and that exchange there. And she said, well, can I speak? And I said, well, yeah, what do you want to speak about? And so she started telling me this story that I was just blown away with. So I said, okay, yeah, we can make some time for you to speak. Are you sure you want to speak? There's going to be hundreds of people there. She goes, yeah, I got this. And I didn't even know where this came from for her because, you know, she's in 6th grade and it's tough for a 6th grader to get in front of a class and to speak, or she's had the opportunity to speak at church and she has done such a great job, but she's kind of like me, you know, it's like anybody, you know, you get kind of nervous, but not for this opportunity to speak in front of all of you all. I don't know where the strength came from, but so I said, yeah, let's make a special moment for that. So we did. And it was during this property tour.
Just to interrupt here. I remember you asking me like, what, you think that'd be okay, man? You think that's going to interrupt the flow? I'm like, Gregg, give yourself this gift, man. Like if like we could throw the rest of this thing away if she gets to do this thing. We thought that was cool. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
it was amazing. But I was kind of nervous. I didn't know if she wanted to do it. I didn't want to put her out there if she wasn't comfortable for it, but she had the strength and confidence I had never seen it before, to be quite honest. So I brought her up. I asked for some encouragement from the audience for our youngest not your average investor to come up. And, you know, my daughter talked about this big problem that she saw in the world and that she really can't understand why dogs are mistreated. And it really breaks her heart. And she can't understand why somebody who, you know, would treat a dog who's supposed to be their best friend in any other way that you wouldn't treat a friend. And it affected her at such a deep emotional level. And so we've known this for a while. And 4 years ago, she talked about how she started a company to solve that problem. And so she sells bracelets. The name of her company is Loom for Love. And so she makes bracelets, and she talked about how she stands on the edge of our driveway and she sells bracelets. And through her efforts over those 4 years, they've been able to save 4 dogs. I don't remember all of the dogs' names, but
she rattled them all off.
She rattled them off.
Those dogs' name, boy.
She just spoke so much from the heart that I think the collective, everybody on that street that we were on just went, oh,
it was so good. It was so good.
And for me as a dad, it was such a moment. You know, I think a lot of, you know, young people and especially young girls are told all the things they can't do.
Yeah.
And excuse me for a second here. So I think young ladies are told all the things they can't do in this world. And so to see my little girl, who's not so little anymore, stand up there and be confident and proud and strong and courageous and do something that she had never done before is a gift, is a memory for me. And I think it's a memory for her. And every time that she, you know, is met with some you know, every time she's met with some challenges along the way, which she'll run into, she'll be able to look back on this moment that you all created for her and that our platform created for her, where she can look back and say, you know what, I did that, so I can do this. So I can do this. And really special moment for me as a dad, something I'll remember forever. So thank you guys.
Awesome, man. Thanks for... Gregg cried twice at the summit, so he's a crier, folks. But yeah, wonderful moment, man. For me, I was watching it all happen, and you know, everybody was like in the collective awe. And there was a moment, I don't know when it happened, but there was a moment where it turned on for her, right? Like, I think it was when she started naming the names of the dogs that she saved. Yeah. And she started getting really comfortable. And all of a sudden, and this is my favorite moment of the entire summit, all of a sudden she goes, like, you were like kind of like coaching her on, and all of a sudden she interrupts you and she goes, you know, I just got to say, I really also want to thank my team. And just owned it, man, and named everybody on her team.
Her 3 best friends.
Yeah, her 3 best friends. And I'm like, dude, just like her dad. Right? Like, it was so awesome, man.
And she spoke loud and confident. She looked at the audience.
Yeah.
She held the microphone and
Owned it, dude.
she just owned it,
Yeah,
man.
it was really cool. It was really cool. So speaking of owning it, if you want to own one of these bracelets,
yeah.
if that just tugged on your heartstrings, if you want to give to the JWB 50/50 raffle, you want to donate to JWB Cares, help solve the affordability crisis, you have that opportunity. The link is in the chat. What is it? $100 donation. You get the sweater, you get the raffle, and you get one of these bracelets as well. My mom bought 5.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. We're about to mail them out.
Yeah.
And
good.
Bella has been at night every single night making more and more and more bracelets. So yeah, absolutely. If you're not here locally, just go ahead, put your information there for the donation and for the raffle tickets. And if you would, just let Cody know in the chat now, because we do only have 3 of the sweaters left. So for the first 3 folks, you get a sweater. As many folks as can do the $100, you'll all get a bracelet. But we do need to know who you are. So put your name in the chat. Let us know. We also need your address if you're not already a JWB client.
Cool. So from there, we went on to see the College Park, like the new College Park Center in, what do you call it? Strip center?
Yeah, shopping mall.
A shopping mall in Arlington with the mural, with the new Winn-Dixie, right? Like this whole like activation. You shared an incredible story of a young woman that, like, I was there when they opened up this thing, and there was like a line around the block, people just saying, man, we haven't had a shopping center in this area in forever, right? Like this is greatly improving my life. And even beyond that, there was a young woman that day that went. What's that story? If you can just hit that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 17 years ago, there used to be a Winn-Dixie in this shopping center, which was the grocery store for this area known as Arlington, which is one of the 4 major neighborhoods that JWB invests in and all of our clients invest in. 17 years ago, the economics didn't work. And Winn-Dixie pulled out of that shopping center, and the shopping center continued to go into disrepair. And it created a food desert in Arlington. And so 6 years ago, JWB saw an opportunity to acquire this shopping center, which is basically the gateway from downtown into Arlington. And we said, wow, how could we really improve our community? How can we create opportunities for our community and for new jobs? And how can we give the best facade that we could have for Arlington coming from downtown, as we know more and more growth is going to come there? And we invested a whole lot of time, money, and capital into the shopping center. And what Pablo was talking about last September when we unveiled it, what we unveiled is that we brought Winn-Dixie back. We've renovated this 180,000 square foot shopping center. We now have Winn-Dixie back as the grocery store anchor for that area. It's created over 100 jobs just for that Winn-Dixie. But to bring it even closer to what you all are doing here, JWB had the opportunity to partner with Big Brothers Big Sisters and mentor kids. We bring our Big Brothers and Big Sisters through the office once a month. We get to really build those relationships. There was one young lady who's a part of Big Brothers Big Sisters who said, just in a passing comment, you know what, I'm really trying to get a job. I just saw this Winn-Dixie that just opened. And so my team heard that and said, oh my goodness, she's talking about our Winn-Dixie. And so what we were able to do was to connect the dots, help her. She earned it all on her own. I want to make sure everybody knows, but we were able to connect the dots and set up an interview for her. She went in, she crushed that interview. And now she is one of those 100 jobs that were created for Winn-Dixie. And so all of this is the bigger picture that I want you all to see about how we're changing lives and how your investments are not just a positive thing for you. It's not just fixing your retirement and making sure that you can hit those goals. It's part of a bigger win for the entire community. You're a part of the reason that, JWB is here today, thriving, and that we're able to do initiatives like Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Yeah. And by Big Brothers and Big Sisters being a part of this and having that young lady having a Winn-Dixie to go to, right, her life is changed, and the change of the lives of everybody in Arlington is continuing to happen. So connecting those dots, I want you to feel really good about what you're contributing to, well beyond just the numbers of the investment.
Yeah. So just magic of the first day of the tour. After that, we had a happy hour at Estrella Casino, which is this like rooftop downtown. We got to meet the sponsors, New View, Whitney Ritchie gave Jason DeBono, Whitney Ritchie from Ritchie Insurance gave a couple of presentations for folks. And just going to read a couple more of these reviews from the WhatsApp group. Kelly, our favorite flat fee-based fiduciary financial advisor friend, she wrote something pretty incredible that says the diversity of the investing community. It is truly an inclusive organization and community. I learned a lot from investors with different perspectives this weekend. And Kevin O'Brien also said something similar. He goes, Lisa and I were talking about this. Lisa, his wife, who, by the way, is hilarious and a great singer at karaoke. We came up with the same answer Kelly did. An impressive, diverse group of people that have a lot to share. The planned content was great, but we expected that. And I think that that's something, you know, like at the happy hour, we've had this conversation, right? Like after past summits, it's like, we didn't realize how different everybody is, and yet how much we can all unite under this like idea of a different way to do things, because we don't want to be average and we want to take control of our financial futures. And it really doesn't matter where you come from, demographic, geography, background, whatever, right? Like I think that whole like the diversity part of it is a brilliant thing that added a lot of value to this community.
The places that we can all go to in this world where we feel completely supportive, regardless of your background, regardless of what you look like, but just to feel completely supported and that you're a part of a positive change, those are really hard places to find in the world today. But we found that here.
It's true. I was going to talk about this later, but when you were talking about Bella, and she's like, well, man, what if she doesn't do it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, Greg, you're not going to find a safer room to fail than this community, right? And what I thought was amazing was you got choked up on the last day, and you even said that you were like getting choked up, and you go, this is the safest room ever, and like you kind of like leaned into your authenticity there, and it's true, man. Like it really is. This community has become this like really magical collaborative thing where we really are propping each other up, and no matter where you come from and no matter who you are, it's become a very safe space for people to thrive, which I love, man. So next day, speaking of safe spaces, weather threw us a curveball.
Yeah, it did.
We had a completely different plan, and we decided we were going to do the tour of downtown first thing in the morning. So we took everybody, all 120 of us. We went down and we talked about the corner between the Federal Reserve Building, 218 Church Street, and the Sweet Pits Building, and how it was the origin of like placemaking, and when JWB started realizing it was more than just buildings, and the interconnectivity is what's going to make a city fabric better, having a bigger picture. Then we went down to like ground zero of where this Pearl Street district is going to be. We've talked about it a lot on the show. This like big development, $2 billion worth of just like urban core, mixed use, hospitality, residential, all these different things. And everybody got to stand in the middle of that. And now in 4 years, they're going to be not being able to recognize that. Really, really cool. And then we went to the periphery of it, right? Where the King Tut exhibit was, where the Van Gogh exhibit was. And we started talking about how like, in order to do this, you have to take these long bets on bringing culture in early so people start getting used to it. And then it's not build it and they will come. It was like, let them come for a little bit, build it so they see it happening, and then they really come, right? It's like long-term view of it that I thought really, really stood out. Anything you want to touch on real quick there?
I love the stages of the evolution. We were able to tell the story of downtown through the lens of JWB, which was number one, we saw a big opportunity to make an impact for our community and our residents and to raise median incomes. We saw a big opportunity for all of you because we have kind of built-in distribution network, let's call it, which is the 6,000 homes that we manage, all of the homes that we manage for you as investors. These are in neighborhoods right around downtown. And when you look at the fundamentals of how a revitalized downtown affects those neighborhoods right around, you start to see increased rents and you start to see increased home prices. So we were able to make that connection there. And we were able to make a connection for JWB, of course, long-term, making an impact, creating a legacy, being a pioneer here, and winning in the long run, which is important, of course. So that connection point was awesome. I just think the numbers of the economic impact were staggering of what Gateway Jacks and the Pearl Street District is going to mean. We'll talk more about this in coming shows, but $1.6 billion economic impact from this development that we're talking about, and over 2,800 jobs from this development that you all are a part of. JWB is a big part of it. You all are a part of it as well. So we are truly, again, this is why I'm just stepping into the shoes of how many lives we're changing here, right? This is the impact. This is the big picture. And I think that was the overall theme especially as we did the downtown tour.
That was definitely our amigo Bill Shields' takeaway, because he wrote in the WhatsApp group, here's what I would say. JWB has created a vertically integrated investment flywheel of greatness that attracts exactly that which can be seen from their employees, investors, partners, and everyone in between. And what better place to do it than right here in Jacksonville, Florida, aka Duval. We are in the beginning stages of witnessing the creation of the greatest new metropolis in America, and it's a privilege to be a small part of it. I encourage, well, he then finished this with, I encourage anyone and everyone who is interested in changing their future and their family's future for the better to jump on board the JWB train.
There we go.
And Santorius, patron Santorius' his wife,
Of course.
right? Along the lines of Bill's statement, learning about Gateway Jacks, seeing the restoration projects in motion, and then learning about the greater revitalization plans were both validating and energizing. We feel blessed to be in on the ground floor of the building/rebuilding of a great city. So shared by many. We then followed that up with the insider investor panel, where your partner, Alex, who, you know, you could say was the tip of the spear for a lot of this stuff, brought together Brian Moll, the CEO of Gateway Jacks, and Lori Boyer, past star of the show as well, the head of the Downtown Investment Authority, to just kind of like put on display this like really rare synergy of like aligned incentives and like a long-term outlook between the public, private sector, and, you know, developers that think differently, and the ability to recruit world-class talent here to Jacksonville. I thought was pretty cool.
I think it's really great. It's not just what you're hearing from me or from the community here. It's great to hear it about city officials, right? Lori is the head. She's the CEO of the Downtown Investment Authority. And it's great to hear it from lead developers who are not exactly JWB, right? Gateway is its own entity. JWB is a sponsor and investor in Gateway. But Brian's experience of having done exactly what we're talking about, having done it multiple times in advance, and him saying, I think one of his best comments was, I think Jacksonville is better suited for this type of economic development through revitalizing downtown than Tampa was.
Yeah. That was interesting. Yeah.
And Tampa's has been legendary.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So
yeah, that's a bold statement right there. So,
yeah.
And coming from the guy that did it, right?
100%.
So really, really interesting. And then we ended with, we had lunch and we hurried into happy hour, but not before. We had a little keynote, right, GC, which we had a lot of fun putting together. And the crux of the keynote was this idea that if we're gonna do this, right, like if we're gonna get to the point where we are changing the dynamics of retirement in America, you had to build this team, but at the end of the day, it's not going to work without a better asset. You want to talk a little bit about your part of that keynote there?
Yeah, well,
before we bring the MVP.
And then I asked everybody who's fired up about downtown Jacksonville, and it was kind of like leading the question. Everybody's like, I'm so fired up, right? Alex came up to me afterwards. He's like, I've never seen 125 people more fired up about Jacksonville.
That's interesting.
And I mean, what I shared with everybody is I'm not surprised, right? Now that you see what we see, it's almost impossible not to be excited about this. But then I said, why did I start this conference by saying the best investment for you is boring old single family rental properties? I know all this stuff that I just shared with you. Why am I sitting here telling you that for everyday investors, the best investment is boring old single family rental properties? And what I shared with folks is like, listen, sometimes when we share this with everybody, the first question is, how can I invest in downtown? And I wanted to show people what investing in downtown really looks like right now. If you want to be an investor in the downtown fund for Gateway Jacks, it is a minimum investment of $1 million. Not only is it a huge capital investment, it's only allowed for accredited investors. So it's not for everybody. You have to have certain income and wealth requirements to even be allowed to do it. And then if you meet those and you want to invest $1 million, here's how the investment looks. You don't get a return on investment year 1 or year 2 or year 3 or year 5. This is for the long haul and bettering Jacksonville as well as doing well financially. So sure, you make some really nice returns, but that's only at the end. And so JWB has raised over $30 million in capital for people that are truly long on Jacksonville. And DLP Capital, our partner, has raised $200 million to do this. But I wanted to show people like that type of investment that I just talked about right there, whole lot of money, $1 million, not, only for accredited folks. You don't see a return on investment until the very end. Like, that's not the best investment for everyday investors. And there's a better risk-adjusted way to take advantage of everything that's going on here in downtown Jacksonville. We know the numbers show that revitalized cities appreciate 27% more than the average US city over the last 10 years. So we know that this drives home price appreciation in those neighborhoods that are right around downtown. And so what I wanted to do with everybody and where I left everybody is like, you're able to get all of the benefits of the increased home price appreciation and rent price appreciation based on everything that you see happening downtown, but you don't have to take the risk to get there. And the way that you do that, the not your average way to do that, is to buy boring old single family rental properties, which go up indirectly for home prices and rents, but every single month they pay for themselves. They produce all across all 5 profit centers, and you get all of that benefit and you get all that risk mitigation from day one, rather than speculating, which I love the downtown investment. I'm a part of that downtown investment, but I also know that that's not the right investment when we're thinking about how can you send your kids to college? How can you make sure you can donate to more charitable causes? How can you reduce your hours at work, right? That's not the type of investment for everyday investors. That's not the type of investment for our not your average investor community. And I think finally we connected the dots. What do you think?
I think so. I think you connected the dots. I'm going to start practicing saying it. Boring old single family rental properties. You have like a very particular cadence to say it. But GC, to me, they're not as boring because you pay off, like you're talking about this great asset, but when you pair this whole like downtown and the thing that's happening in downtown, I got up there and I started, explaining it as like, well, yeah, you might have thought the iPod was boring.
Right.
But if you had somebody inside of Apple that worked there, that after they released the iPod and it was clearly crushing, they gave you the inside track to know that the iPhone was coming and that the future of the world and communication was going to change forever. And Apple was going to become the most valuable company in the world. And you got to buy it right after the iPod. That's the same as what we are telling people to, invest in boring old single family rental properties, boring old single family rental properties. And that's what has me super excited. This like insider information. And then you were pretty quick to tell everybody that would have been illegal if I would have told you.
You would have ended up in jail if you did what you just said in that fictitious story there and used insider information in the stock market world, because that is illegal. But the beautiful thing about real estate is we get to have conferences like this summit where not only do we get to share it, we get to take you on a tour and actually show it to you. We get to basically put this on a silver platter for you. And that's where this urgency and where I was sharing with folks, this is such a special time right now for you as an investor, because this model has worked for decades and decades and decades. And for friends of the show who have been watching for 4 years now, you've seen it work in a pandemic. You've seen it work through eviction moratoriums. You've seen it work through interest rates rising the most in 40 years. It still works. But now is this special time for you to get on the ground floor, just like I think Bill said, and Kelly said, and Denny has said, right? You get this opportunity to get on the ground floor and hitch your wagon to a revitalizing downtown. And we know the way that the economics work there. Right? If you are like any of the folks that came on the summit and you believe that 5 years from today, you're not going to remember what downtown Jacksonville looks like, just like 5 years after the iPhone came out, we didn't remember what it was like to live in a world without the iPhone.
I forgot all about Nokia.
And you want to profit from that legally. Well, you can do that through buying boring old single family rental properties here in Jacksonville with JWB. There you go.
Love it. And step one for that, Katrina Fisher is asking, is you go to chatwithjwb.com, you book a call, and you start you share with a team your why and what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll reverse engineer a plan for you. So go to chatwithjwb.com and do that, or shoot an email out to info@jwbcompanies.com. And speaking of special times, it's a special time right now because we're bringing on the MVP to give us his.
It's about time.
It's about time. The MVP coming on stage. Let's bring him on here. The MVP, folks. Lee Bishop.
There he is, Mr. MVP. He's got his bracelet on. There we go. I love it.
Lee, what was my question for you is,
Uh-oh.
you're like famous here, right? Like you're famous in this community, right? Like
So
have you ever walked into a room of 125 people that are like, you're Lee, oh my God, let me get your autograph. Does that happen to you often?
Never. No. I mean, around family maybe, but not in. I mean, it was really special meeting everybody at this summit. I mean, it was something. I had people coming up to me, you know, and just rekindling some of the relationships that I had, you know, through the show and everything, and then putting faces to everybody. It was awesome, and getting the swag. Oh my gosh, I tell you, it was. You didn't know how this was going to be used through this weekend, right? It was cold. Everybody needed one. I was like, man, how'd they know?
Well, you know, I don't want to pat anyone's back here, but somebody on the team said instead of shirts, instead of hats, the best thing we can do is give him a warm single layer that people get to use often. And yeah, I thought it worked.
Said a little something special right around here, right? What does that say there, Mr. MVP? The other side.
Yeah, MVP Lee. So you guys did something special for the mini roll call that you had. There were certain people that show up a lot on the show, and we happen to be at the summit. And in the beginning of the meeting, you guys did a little roll call, which was amazing, you know, so people got to see who these names were and who these faces were. And I got to sit behind Mama Jane, right? And Alex's mom. I mean, it was just so cool because so people got to see who we were. And right off the bat, they were like, you know, Cody greeted us when everybody came in that first day, and she was filling everybody with joy. That was awesome.
Lee, before we get out of here and go to lunch, man, number one takeaway of having been there, right? Because you had come before, you came last year. Difference from last year to this year, or biggest kind of takeaway that you got away from this one experience?
It was something that Gregg said, and I didn't realize it, that we're among the 12%. And I heard a lot of people echoing that through the summit, like only 12% of Americans invest in rental income properties as an asset class. And when you said that, I was like, oh my God, only 12%. And then you said like 67% of the people said, yeah, real estate's where you should buy, but only 12% do. Mm-hmm. I thought that was amazing. That was a huge takeaway to a lot of people, not just me, you know, to a lot of people. The second thing I thought was cool was you guys making a difference in downtown. I mean, I can't talk about that enough, and how you guys are not the only ones, but, you know, among everybody else that's contributing to that, and how that's ripple effect going to affect everybody that's buying houses in the core houses. And the number one takeaway that I have is community. You know, I saw how proud Gregg was of his team. You know, he was a little bit emotional in one of his speeches, giving some love. And I'm sure that carries on to everybody on his team. He just feels that way about everybody. It was really neat. And I just want to say, everybody that I met and talked to was all sharing loves. Yeah, I could only give out so many hugs. You know, these arms are only so big, but but I tried to give as many as I could. I tried to talk to as many people as I could, and I made a lot of amazing friends.
Good for you, man. You've poured so much into this community, man, that if you didn't come back with a glowing review like that, I would have had a big issue with it. Wanted to give you a great experience and make sure that you got the love you deserve, brother.
I appreciate it, and I love you guys. It was so special seeing everybody and meeting your family and Gregg's family. And yeah, Gregg, I took a picture of Pablo's mom fixing his shirt at the bus. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I gotta send that to Pablo.
How about the picture of you and Pablo chopping it up the day before on Thursday when you came in? I snapped a picture of you guys just having a ball here in the studio. I think it was the picture of the essence of just like two guys just like laughing and enjoying each other's company. We'll have to share that.
Somehow we got an interview out of it, right? Somehow there we go. Like something came out of that.
Love it, bud. Well, you know, I got two more reviews from the chat, right? Jerry Kreischman wrote that he echoed what so many people said, but two other things stuck in his head. One, the open and honest discussions with Gregg and his staff, genuinely wanting to find an answer to your question or situation. And two, the fact that everyone has a plan and is executing to that plan. The plans are diverse. One size does not fit all, but the diversity seems to create strength or security for their personal plan. And on a personal side, seeing Gregg get emotional as a leader of his team and their reaction back was really, really special. So I thought that was a really cool one by Jerry as well.
Yeah, there's been a few waterworks here in the last week that, wasn't necessarily planning on.
Yeah.
But, it's real. And I just am so thankful for the people I get to surround myself with. And I think, just created something special. So really thankful.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool.
what was cool was that you had one of your summit sponsors, Whitney Ricky, was available, made herself available to everybody, and she was approachable throughout the whole summit, except for the karaoke. But,
it's funny. It's funny. That is last thing I'll say is we also heard that from Pamela too, right? Like this idea that everybody was surprised that everybody was hanging out the whole time. I guess it makes sense reverse engineered wise. Normally when I go to a conference, I'm not expecting to talk to like the MC or the keynote speaker or whatever. But the idea that we, this is a community. This isn't like an event company. This isn't a podcast, right? Like the idea that, it wasn't just like a show to like, hey, you're going to meet and greet with Gregg and like Pablo at karaoke or whatever. The fact that we were all going to spend together, have like heartfelt conversations, share these like special moments is really part of this whole thing. And that's going to continue to happen, right? So whether it's with you, Lee, and the rest of our community members, whether it's with Gregg, whether it's with me, these Not Your Average Investor Summits are made for this sense of community and inclusion and everybody getting together. And the last one I'll read from Denny Davis, Mystery Man.
Mystery Man
Says, I learned that the first for community extends well beyond our 2 hours per week together. Dean Curry put it best when we were chatting. Some of us have just a couple homes. Some of us have 300 homes, but there's no competition. We're all on the same team rooting for each other, and that camaraderie was clearly evident this weekend. That's what we were really here for. I get the feeling that's what you were here for, G.
absolutely.
Me too, by the way.
You
Don't
too.
leave me out.
Yeah, no, that's why I said G. GC.
It was special, man. It was special. And I talked to everybody, and everybody said they're coming back next year.
Yeah.
And I believe everybody. And so I think we are setting ourselves up for an even bigger show next year.
200 people. I'm just throwing it out there.
Maybe more. I think it could have been 200 if we just hadn't, capped the list in the beginning. So who knows? That's up to you guys. The more people you tell, we'll make the space for them.
Well, we're gonna do everything possible to get the word out real early, so everybody can make all the plans to be there. We're gonna make this thing real big next year, and we promise to come back bigger and better. So this Tuesday, another show. Of course, we're gonna be talking about our real estate developers and investors creating the affordable housing crisis. We got some opinions on that, GC.
Yes, we do.
I know that you're gonna come with hard-hitting facts, but from now till then, go to chatwithjwb.com if you want to start your journey. Make sure that you put this thing on your agenda. GC's got one more thing to say.
Well, I was going to say, I know what the URL is now. If you want to go ahead and buy your raffle tickets for JWB Cares, it's jwbrealestate.com/raffle. You go there, you can buy any number of tickets you want. And if you buy at least $100 worth of tickets, my daughter's going to make you a bracelet, and we'll send you one of these lovely, lovely sweaters that Lee is rocking over there.
And last but not least, advice from now till then. Lee, tell them.
Don't be average.
See ya.